Welcome to Shirin Conversations. I'm your host, Marjana Paravan. On today's episode, I am joined by Dr. Foojan Zeine, who is a licensed and marriage family therapist with over 30 years of experience. She is also a radio host, international speaker, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, The Awareness Path to Create the Life You Want. Thank you, Dr. Foojan, for joining me today.
It's great to be with you. Thank you. Thank you for your invitation and looking
Absolutely.
forward to our conversation.
I am as well. So I'm really honored to speak with you today of all days. I mean, December 14th, it's a big day for intention setting and allowing room for change. I'm a huge person. I'm into manifestation. I'm into meditation. I'm all about learning a practice of bettering myself in my life. With that being said, I know you're big on that. What is a practice that you incorporate into your life?
One of the things that I've done is as I wake up in the morning, I start going through all the, let's say, blessings that I have, looking at internal and external, some of the maybe strengths that I have and things that I like about myself and things that I've done for myself. And then I start looking at, the accomplishments that other people have had around me, the beauty of having them in my life and the beauty of who they are, and kind of like sending the positive energy to everyone. And then I call in an intention for the day, as if like this is what I want to practice throughout the day. And usually I'll call on something that is, I have some vulnerability, so it creates an exercise for me. So for example, if I wake up with a little bit of agitation, then I intend to be peaceful and accepting of all that shows up, because I know that day I would be a little bit more vulnerable on that side. Or getting excited about something, or if I have doubt about a project or something, I would intend for my doubt to go away, from the courage to come into manifestation, to get created. So that's on a personal level. And then I think that there's a power of 8 that I'm sure the book is out, and I think it's wonderful for people to check out. And we have created different types of groups of 8 people that we are there for each other. It's only about being there with you and for you out there. So we create an intentionality, and each day it's one of us that puts ourselves out there. And it's interesting enough, today was my day, because Mondays are my day. And everyone kind of like holds your intentionality into a beautiful space for you. And I don't know whether, energetically that happens or not, but something that definitely happens, that keeps you accountable and it keeps you into the space, because now you're not only accountable to yourself, but you're also accountable to 7 other people who they're out there for you. And then you get to be there for them. So those are some of the ways of looking, and then looking at the intentionality to be clear, crisp in what it is that I intend to create. Especially today, as you said, knowing that what you're intending to create in a positive way and putting it out there versus, putting yourself into the doubt and any of the negative energy.
Yeah, no, and I love that you said that, because they always say when you're with a collective group of people, that energy itself magnifies. And so whatever you're putting out there is tenfold. And I love that. I mean, this year alone, I've been working on myself a lot. And I always went into a day, and I didn't know this right away. I would say, it's a shame that I can't travel right now. I mean, everyone in the world can't travel. And the work that I'm doing, it's really talking to yourself and saying, I'm grateful for the time that I had to travel, because you're thankful for what you have done and being able to bring that energy into the new year. So I love that you do that. It's a great practice. With that said, I think you teed me up perfectly for my next question. So in your book, The Life Reset, you're all about awareness, understanding, and acceptance towards our thoughts, feelings, and how we, maneuver through our day-to-day in our life. I actually started reading it prior to my interview with you. And what I love about the book is that you created an exercise, which is like 12 simple, like very open-minded questions that you ask yourself. And you go through this journey with yourself. And it's a really interesting conversation that you have, because you allow yourself to really be vulnerable. Why was this book so important for you to create?
I've been a therapist for almost 30 years, and I've gone through a lot of different virtues on myself. I came here when I was 12 years old, alone. I went to a boarding school. I went to university when I was 15 and completely on my own. Um, I had to start, having 3 jobs at age 17 in order to grow. I was abused as a child. I was sexually abused from age 3 to 8. I had a lot of vulnerabilities. I had a lot. I could tell you that I had chronic depression as I, kind of like grew up, and I grew up alone, and I kind of like I had to raise myself, let's say.
Mhm.
So I can tell you, Marjorie John, that by almost 30, I had promised myself to have some of the stuff, such as, to have my own business, to be married, to have my own home, everything. And by age 28, I did. And I was not happy. I was
Mhm.
devastated. I was depressed. And so I started going to 2 things simultaneously. I went to self-growth seminars, and then I also went to psychotherapy. I went to self-growth seminars because my friends were there and I was getting into it, and I really enjoyed having the opportunity to create reflection for myself. I started therapy going because of my marriage was failing, and I wanted to go to, marital therapy. And the concept of these two suddenly brought me to a whole different level of not coming from a victim stance and poor me, and I'm powerless, while my the results didn't show that I was powerless, to having the confidence and the agency inside, that no matter what the circumstances were as a child, and you didn't cause those, it got created, that you could shift something. And then I went through obviously different methodology of psychotherapy and all of that. And then I looked at every piece of the theories out there, which some of them connect to, to go in from a thought process. And if you shift the thought process, then there were other theories that are go through emotions and shift the emotions. There were other theories which like change the behavior, and you're going to go. And I figured, okay, I'll take all 3 of them. I'll take the
Mhm.
best of what was out there and I was learning. And then obviously the trauma base, because no matter what happens in the present moment, it's getting influenced by the past, and the past that you have, a lot of them amazing stuff and a lot of them, hurtful stuff. And the amazing stuff created strength for us in moving forward. And the trauma sometimes created, kind of like withhold. So I brought them together of whatever I saw, including the mind body techniques, and everything that I had learned, including hypnosis, EMDR, everything. I brought them together into a model. So part of why it was important to me, because I had gone through the journey with myself, I had gone through the journey with my clients, and I've watched how as a therapist, they had allowed me to grow and practice different ways that I had practiced on myself with them. So it became more like an evidence base, and we did it, we went and worked through universities and created research on it. And every day it created like more evidence based of how bringing these efficiently together. So you go kind of like deep quickly and come out, instead of having somebody in psychotherapy for 20 years. So those were why the elements of this, like you said, they're simple but deep questions, and they're questions that you ask yourself. And I hope that people create this kind of like a camera on themselves, which is an observational camera, which asks those 12 questions consistently from themselves at any point that they're going through the day. Because when you become aware of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and the impact that it has immediately, and the way that you relate to the world, or your projections of the world to you, or how you are with yourself as you experience the world, this allows you that in the present moment, you always have the ability to have a shift if something's not working for you, and be able to be assertive at that moment in creating, the in between, like between you and I, whatever happens, I'm like on top of it. I got
Yes.
this. It's not like, I'm sure you've experienced it, and people who are listening to us experienced it, that you go through something and then you go home and you're like, I should have said that, and I should have done that, and I should have did this, and I should have done that, right?
100%.
Yeah, so having the ability to have these 12 questions being an automatic way of you consistently observing, you get the practice to shift who you are, say what you need to say, and be intentional at every moment. And then watch for how many of the past programmings have been, they're part of our automatic response. And then there's a technique that shows you exactly a process to go back and kind of like take care of yourself, heal
Like
yourself,
reobserve. Yes, I
and
love that.
exactly, and reintegrate those pieces within your wholesome self, that you have
Mhm.
all of it together, and you don't have all these little pieces of inner children who are devastated somewhere stuck in closets anymore. They're out, they're taken care of, and you as a solid adult are taking care of all of them. And then also has the way of for you to consistently hold vision and intention in front of you systematically, because then every single behavior is going to lead you to that, whether you're
Very true.
intentional or not. And it's like, well, can you have that in your mind and your vision so that you could consistently think, feel, behave in a way that you keep creating what you intend to create?
No, I love that. And I like what you said. It's you basically have given people a roadmap to hold in their hands, in their back pocket. When you're having these conversations with yourself and these practices, you can't really lie to yourself. And it's harder when you're speaking to someone else. You may not know them and you create the story in your mind, but you walk away and you build more of stress in your mind, your heart, basically, of things that you couldn't allow yourself to escape. And I love this because, you get yourself to a place where you're so aware of your surroundings, the way that your attitude towards others, yourself, and it allows you to live that better life that you're seeking. So thank you for creating such an incredible journey for all of us. I love practices like this because it's maintenance. It's like routine maintenance, checking in on yourself, making sure you're okay, and having those conversations. And therapy has in the past been something that was so taboo, whether it's societal or cultural. However, I think this year, the blessing, and I say this in air quotes, the blessing of this year with COVID, mental health has become the priority for all of us. Whether you're at home, you can't leave, or you're dealing with a family member or yourself who has a weak immune system. What are you doing for yourself? What kind of conversations are you having to allow yourself to be stronger for the next day, to look for, that light at the end of the tunnel? So my question for you is there any type of reassuring advice that you can give someone who is seeking help, but is too afraid to because of how they've grown up or what they've heard from friends or family, and they're too afraid to admit?
I look at it, Marjane, as a mirror. We
Mhm.
cannot see our face. We will forget our face. We won't we can't see the back of our head without putting another mirror. Um, so I'm asking people to look at coaching, counseling, therapy, any of those as actually having a mirror. That's all it
Mhm.
is. It's a mirror. When we go to our friends and family, they love us, they want to support us, but they have biases on both level. One, they might not want to hurt us, so they might not tell us everything because they figure we're vulnerable in something. They don't know how to get rid of that vulnerability or support us out of that vulnerability. All they do is maybe they hold it, they hold the vulnerability for us, so we keep becoming more victimized and more vulnerable. Many of our friends and family don't have the skills, or they have a listening which is already has a bias. So when you look at a mirror which is not clear, then you can't see yourself. If it's foggy, you can't see yourself. But if there's a clear mirror in front of you, then you get to choose, because you get to see the reality of what's going on in your face, in your hair, in your body, and then you get to choose. So if you imagine psychotherapy space as that clean mirror, where
Mhm.
you get to see yourself with no biases, with a full on acceptance as who you are as a human being, then you get to see you. It's not about the therapist seeing you, it's about you seeing you. And you seeing you not with those thought process of punitive. Every one of us have those voices that we got, you're nothing, you're this, you're that. No, with just clean mirror. And then you get to choose what works and not. Plus, then, obviously, your therapists have other skills to also teach you in how to contain emotions, how to, look at those belief systems and challenge them, and bring those kind of like blind spots that you're not seeing, and your family might not see it because, it's so natural for them that they don't see anything beside that. They bring those blind spot in front of you, so you see it, and then you get to choose it. The environment is safe. Yes,
Mhm.
you might have to look at some areas of you that you don't like, but guess what, Marjana? We look at those every day anyway,
It's true.
but we don't know how to get out of it. And I think that the clear space of just non-judgmental, positive regard, unconditional kind of an acceptance creates a space for us to be able to become whole, to become accepting of ourselves, to become loving toward ourselves. And I think, if we look at it from a safe space, then it's one of those things like, why wouldn't you want to go to a space that has calming music, a nice massage of your body and nutrition? A lot of the spas that we go and you come back rejuvenated. Therapy has the same thing. It just might not be rejuvenating the first sessions or 2 sessions or whatever. The same way when you go to one of these resorts that at the first week they're detoxing you, and guess what? It's not that comfortable, but then
Yeah.
you come out completely rejuvenated. And that's how I see therapy.
I love that. You actually said it so perfectly. It made me really understand it. Your examples itself, like when we think of wellness, sometimes we think of our bodies, like you said, like going to a wellness spa, getting a massage, going to a chiropractor, align your body so that you can walk and move correctly. The first few times you get adjusted, it's not comfortable. You go to sleep, you can't go to sleep because you're sore. But we don't realize that our minds are also a muscle that needs to be massaged in some way. At a time prior to this, people were too afraid to admit that they were doing therapy. And I will credit this year a lot for allowing myself to have that time and space to go and speak to someone who didn't necessarily know me, like you said. There's no triggers that they felt that they're hitting. They were just creating a mirror for me to look at. So I love that you put that way. You said it throughout this interview and reading your book and listening to your podcast. I already feel like I know this answer, but what is it to you in these 30 years that's the most fulfilling part of your job? And what would you say to someone who really wants to get into a career similar to yours?
I think the element of having the opportunity to make a difference in people's life. And people love to make differences in different ways. Somebody, is more important for them to give a service in, for example, the way they create food or change, health around the world or something. I think for me, the intimacy of seeing someone where the two of us sit down or even in a group and the person allows themselves, which because there's a creation of safety element, the person creates allows themselves to bring down the guards and bring down their vulnerability, and this vulnerability is shared. And I think when these vulnerabilities are shared, then it creates a strength for everyone, and I think we learn from each other. So
Mhm.
it's every single person who has shown me something from inside of them, which you know has allowed me to grow. Whether there was someone who, no matter what, decided to commit suicide, and no matter what, we were in the hospital, everybody was there, it was a locked unit, and the person decided that it wasn't up to us, and they chose that for their life. Or side by side on the other side, where somebody who had nothing to live for suddenly got out of the ashes and just flew to a place that it was like, this is how I can be. From people who were so much into addiction that sometimes at one point in my own mind was like, the next call I'm going to get, the person is going to be OD. And then suddenly they again rise out of ashes, something shifts inside of them, and they choose life. So you see, in 30 years, you see people and you're like, wow, this is who human beings are. You
Yeah.
know? So there's a wow element into it that I'm never, it never ceases to surprise me of how resilient human beings are.
So true.
And so I think that's the beauty that I've gained. And I think it's one of the most beautiful careers of the world, and I really welcome people. And they say there's too many therapists around the world. I'm like, no, I wish 7.5 billion people become therapists, because
Wow.
in the path of becoming a therapist, you get to look at yourself, you get to
Mhm.
work with yourself, and you get to choose a career that you are holding somebody else's hand, and together. It's not like you're holding somebody else's hand and bringing them up. No, no,
Sure.
together you're constantly learning and moving forward.
No, I think that's amazing. And I feel like I understand why you sit on the board of IAWF. It's something that you are allowing yourself to be a resource for those that really have questions, whether they want to connect with their heritage or culture, ethnicity, people who are like them. Maybe they didn't grow up in an area that was like here in Orange County, where it's every corner you see is someone that's Iranian. My last question actually was to you is that, again, you sit on the board at IAWF, incredible organization. I've been a part of it for some time while I lived in New York and now back here in Orange County. Why is being a part of that organization so important to you?
Yeah. Um, I think the first time I've known the founder and the director, Mayam Khosravani, for almost close to 30 years. So I've watched her, like her heart and how she has been there for all agencies, every nonprofit organization. I used to have a center, Personal Growth Institute, and I remember at any point which I needed some guidance about it, I would call Mariam about nonprofit organization, type of management. And I watched her through the years in how she was out there connecting people, from her heart. And then I remember the first seminar that we went. I start getting emotional.
Oh,
I walked in and it was this inspirational concept of women coming together, and especially Iranian women, because I think Iranian women they're very strong, but the culture has not allowed them to experience their strength. So it's interesting that when I've watched Iranian women come to other cultures and they've taken the steps and they have just flown on top while they kept their, loving and essence of family and all of it. And then suddenly I saw the space where Iranian women were there for each other.
mhm.
In a lot of cultures which are male dominant, the women many times learn not to be there for each other, but to compete with each other, or try to hold a particular place where if they gotten there uh, through a man or with a man, not to allow anybody else. And this space was so different.
Mhm.
It was that women were there to hold each other, promote each other, be admiring each other, versus being jealous of each other.
Yes.
At this concept of adoration and admiration of the powerhouse that we are. And the space, and I just remember it kept coming out and I was crying and I'm like, Mariam, do you know what you just did? Like this essence that we don't experience with the Middle Eastern women before. We are there, Middle Eastern women and a lot of other women. And I say this because I think this has shifted a little bit in the Western culture, not fully, but I think like when we look at Middle Eastern women, we're there for each other in pain. We're there for each other
Absolutely.
in sorrow, taking care of each other. Like that part is always there. But when it came to growth and when it came to shining and when it came to all of that, then that was like, I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know how she got there, or I don't know. There was a lot of
Questions.
questions there. And this space with this organization was very different.
I agree.
And I wanted to be a part of it.
You painted such a perfect picture for someone like myself, who I really got involved when I lived in New York and I came to a new city, a new state. I didn't know anybody there. And I always felt like I was in the middle. I never went to Iran. My parents are from there, I'm first generation. And I could speak it. I couldn't read Farsi. So it's like for me, I was like, I didn't know how to fully commit to being Iranian, or I felt ashamed in that sense. But being a part of IAWF, being in a room, like you said, it was a small chapter in New York at the time when I started, but even as small as it was so large because of these contributions that these women have done, these moves that they've made throughout society is just, it's not celebrated enough. And I think what Mariam did was so beautiful. I mean, coming up 10 years, it's pioneered something that wasn't there.
And I think that we brought through the 10 years, not only about the success and the celebration of success. We brought the conversation of taboos, things that are there,
Yes.
whether it was sexual abuse, or whether it was LGBTQ, or whether it was addiction, or any of those autism, mental health issues, mental illness issues. We brought those into the surface and had, lectures after lectures and panels for this to be conversed about, for us to be able to put it out there that it's not only that we're admiring each other for our success, but we're also admiring each other and being there for
Absolutely.
each other for all of our vulnerabilities. So I think that was a great aspect of this agency. And then the organization is also create people who need something, whether it's needing for them to complete their universities, or needing for them to have 1 month rent for because at that moment they have a hardship. So there's also this other contributory aspect of obviously the organization,
Yeah.
which creates this comprehensive way of, again, women coming together to support women. We're also we're becoming inclusive, so we're bringing and requesting for men to come, because the same way
Yes.
we always say, for behind every successful man there's a woman, but I also think that behind any successful woman is also a man, which together we're allowing each other to just
Agreed.
grow in that way. So
And
that's also an inclusivity we're bringing in.
you're not just celebrating something, but you're learning at the same time. You're supporting, giving that person. And at the end of the day, you're also creating role models for people. So thank you for your contribution and your work with them as well.
Thank you, and thank you for your contribution to the
Of
IAWF
course.
now.
It's an honor, honestly. But again, thank you so much, Dr. Foojan, for taking the time to speak with me. I know my listeners will really find this conversation helpful and inspiring.
Thank you. It's been a joy to converse with you, and hope to see you soon.
Yes, absolutely. I'm Margina Paravan, and you've been listening to Shirin Conversations. Thank you.